Hello, Mr. Smith. I'm Caden Gerlach, and I am excited for the possibility of working as a telecommunications admin assistant here at CBU. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some of these interview questions for you so you can get to know me a little bit better. So let's start off with my career goals. My career goals are to graduate from CBU with my bachelor's in criminal justice, continue on to law school in Texas, because I've heard that Texas is a very nice state. My sister lives there. My grandma used to live there. Pass the bar exam there because you need to pass the bar exam in the state that you wish to practice law in, and then I'd hopefully become a licensed attorney and get a job as a civil lawyer. I'm doing criminal justice, so I first thought that I'd be like a prosecutor or defense attorney, but I don't really want to do that anymore. I'd possibly specialize in firearms legal protection or personal injury litigation. That's basically where I'm at for my career goals right now. A recent project that I worked on was at my last job. It was at the Copper Valley Electric Association, and that's in Glen Allen, Alaska. I was mapping electrical lines and gathering assemblies of the line, surveying, basically making sure that there was nothing wrong with their distribution lines. No like breaks in the grounds or leaning poles. So just a lot of paying attention and gathering information so that my boss could interpret it back at the office and draw connectivity and stuff that I don't know how to do yet. Another project on this job was hunting down idle meter bases. And what are idle meter bases? Just like a box where the meter's supposed to go. And it wasn't on record, so they wanted me to go gather the number that's on the seal tag and then just put it on record. So I work in Bush, Alaska. A lot of these meters are absolutely in the middle of the woods, so I'd have to use the GPS and search for them in the woods as best as I could. It was a fun job. It was challenging. So a little bit more about myself. I'm a sophomore at CBU. I was born and raised in Alaska. I love DC Comics and The Lord of the Rings. A huge Lego collection of Lord of the Rings Legos. There's my DC poster in the background. Living in the small town of Glen Allen, Alaska, I had an amazing opportunity to have private string instruction with an amazing music teacher named Richard Freeman Toole. I learned violin when I was 8 years old, and then I started cello when I was 14, and I've since then played at Carnegie Hall and the Sydney Opera House with the Honors Performance Series Orchestra. And I've done some talent shows, street performances, a lot of fun stuff. Like, I really love music, playing music. I've wrestled since I was 5 years old, K through 12. I was a 2-time high school state champion, 4-time placer in Alaska. I wrestled at an international tournament in Greenland for Arctic Winter Games, and then I wrestled at a tournament in Guatemala, and it was also a missions trip with Athletes in Action. So in Guatemala, I had the opportunity to give my testimony. It's translated in Spanish to the wrestlers that we were training with there, and it helped me see how God works through people's situations in life, and for me that was as an athlete, and to spread his word across the world. That was the first time I'd actually done something like that. I got to share my faith and do the sport that I love. That's kind of what made me want to come here. So I appreciate the outdoors. I enjoy fishing and hunting. We live in a small town, basically in the middle of the woods, so we get to do that quite often. I just love getting out and doing stuff, being in the outdoors. And now we're going to go over my work experience in chronological order. So let's start when I was 8 years old. I had hauled brush and did some yard work for a neighbor just to pay for wrestling camp. I did odd jobs, just yard work, from when I was 8 to about 14, just in the summer to stay busy. I was 14. That was my first real job I would consider a real job. It was Three Rivers Construction Company. Worked there in the summer on a demolition crew. We rebuilt a house in the native village of Gakona, Alaska. So just construction, demolition, and then rebuilding the house. Age 16, I did some work on a hunting lodge in Grizzly Lake, Alaska with my brother. We poured gypcrete, and it was for heated flooring, and then painted for about a month there. When I was 17, I drove in airplane anchors. So it's like a big spike holds in the airplanes, the airports, bush plane. Drove in airplane anchors for about a week. Shortly after, I helped build a mercantile at Lake Louise, Alaska for a week. And that summer, I worked for Fulmer's painting crew in Eagle River, Alaska for a month. And there I painted houses. The fall of 2018 is when I started working at the Copper Valley Electric Association in Glen Allen, Alaska, where I started out working part-time as a groundskeeper while I finished high school. So there I plowed snow on early mornings. The driveway was snowed in, snowstorms, did maintenance in the office and the line shack, bleeding fuel lines and just making sure things are looking good. 8 months later, I got promoted to the assistant mechanic position. So I was still fulfilling my duties as a groundskeeper, but the mechanic job allowed me to learn a lot about troubleshooting broken vehicles and replacing appropriate parts to fix them. It was a really, really good opportunity for me. In the summer of 2020, I worked at the Copper Valley Electric Association again as a GIS mapper, so I drove 6-wheelers and surveyed and mapped 700 miles of electrical line. 60 hours a week. I was working a lot, but it was nice to be out in nature and learn how the distribution system works in rural Alaska. So 3 people that I would choose to help me with a project would be, first, Jesus Christ, because I think he knows everything about the world. So whatever the project is, I'm sure he could lend some good advice. Elon Musk, I think he's extremely brilliant. A brilliant mind, thinks outside the box, and creates incredible technology that other people haven't even come close to figuring out. I think he's ahead of his time as far as technology and brilliance, truly. And then John Sebastian Bach. Bach, he composed some of the most complex music. He played several different instruments, and I just think that if you can do all those things, which I know to be extremely difficult, then those patterns of thought that he used to be so excellent in his field, I think would be useful for a lot of projects. And next, a big mistake I had was when I forgot to check my oil on my car. First car, it was always burning, and I never thought to check the oil or fill it up. So as a result, it seized up, engine seized on the way to work, never started again, and to this day I do not get into a vehicle without checking the oil and always regularly changing oil on my own vehicle. Question 7 was interesting. I did conclude the best situation was if there's coworkers, to ask them to help de-escalate the coffee spill situation. If I had a boss there, I would ask them for a preferred plan of action before I'd go through with my own. Theoretically, me and the coworkers would offer to dry the mayor's shoes with a towel. If he declined my offer, I would ask him if he needs anything from us so he can clean his shoes himself, since he might be particular about his shoes. Some people are. So, meanwhile, one of the other coworkers would make a caramel macchiato sprinkled with iced blueberries for the customer who spilled it, and put the cap on extra tight, maybe even put on an extra cap. I don't know if that makes it any better, but we would do that. I would do that. Once the mayor's shoes have been cleaned out with a towel, I clean up the mess with a mop, and the other coworkers serve the long line of customers, and when I'm finished cleaning, I continue my job. And next, I'm the CBU Lancer, and my t-shirt machine has broke, and I can't throw the t-shirts to the 30th row because the stairs are too high. Okay, so for this one, my first option, instead of throwing the t-shirts, I would kick them. You can kick farther than you can throw anyways. There was no restrictions on the kicking motion, so I would kick them to the crying children in the 30th row. And the second option, which I think is actually a little bit better, I can take off the Lancer suit so I can throw them to the 30th row while I also cool down since the ice pack is melting. And while I do that, I could ask for another ice pack and another t-shirt blaster, possibly. Number 8, time when I did not have direction on a project and I created direction on my own. I was assigned to replace a sway bar for a bucket truck when I worked at CVEA. I'd never done that job before, so I didn't really know what to do. What I ended up doing is I looked through a bunch of YouTube videos of tutorials showing exactly what to do, and after a whole lot of trial and error, memorizing where the bolts, where the nuts and bushings go, a lot of memorization, a lot of failing, messing up, I did eventually end up learning how to do it. I replaced the sway bar on the front end of this truck, got it figured out, and it was okay. It was a success. So I think success is choosing the path in life that allows someone to be at peace with their spiritual work and personal life. I think it means being at a good place with God and continually seeking His guidance while working hard every day to fulfill financial needs and goals. Relationships between friends and family and one's personal life, I think, are really important because they can look to you for comfort. They will look to you for comfort, especially if you're a father or a husband, I think, in stressful times, and vice versa. So I think maintaining those relationships are part of being successful. I think also, oftentimes, when chasing one of these things, the others can be overlooked. And number 10, I think my greatest career accomplishment would be I wrestled my way to the finals of a national tournament in Reno. I had been practicing hard all winter. It was my senior year. This was like the last tournament, basically, of my high school career. The CBU recruiters were there, the coaches that recruited me to this team. They saw me there. I didn't even know it at the time, really. So it was really important that I did well. And it set off my career as a wrestler here. And most of my matches there were down to the wire. I had to work for each win. I think that's why it's my greatest career accomplishment, because even though I didn't get first, which I really wanted to, pretty close, I realized how far I can push myself even when I'm uncomfortable and tired. My ideal work environment is a setting where I can be adequately given the information and training that I need to complete the tasks of my job, and have a small number of experienced people to ask for help if I need it, especially in a new work setting. It's nice to have people that they know they've been in your shoes before, that can help you out. I like it to be somewhere a setting where I can still work and figure things out on my own if I need to. But I think the most important thing is just having the tools you need. So working in a team environment, I like working in team environments because it can be good for productivity. I had a coworker this summer, so it helps so much when you're just trying to make sure that you're doing things efficiently. So I think it's nice to work in a group for me because I can ask for help or advice if I need it, especially from more experienced people. I appreciate it, especially at a new job. I'd like to get to know a team if I'm going to be working with them, because it's nice to work with a group you're familiar with a little bit. So that concludes the interview questions. Thank you so much for considering me for this job. I hope to hear from you soon. Have a good one, Mr. Smith.